So before I turn things over to Brittany to get started, I just wanted to touch base really quickly and share with you all the list of webinars we have coming up over the next few days. So tomorrow in the morning we'll be offering Google Forms, and oops, sorry about that. In the afternoon we're going to have Google Earth projects. So that's at 2 o'clock. On Thursday, we'll have Google Sites, and in the morning and in the afternoon, we're going to be doing the Choose Your Own Adventure. And then on Friday, we'll be using flippity.net to make flashcards, online flashcards. And then in the afternoon, we'll be doing Nearpod. And if you'd like to register for any of those, you can just go to mark.org/pd and you can get to all of those workshops from there. All right, and with that, I will turn it on over to Brittany.
Hello, everyone. I am Brittany Gaffney, and I am an instructional technology specialist with Model Schools at the RIC. And today, our webinar is going to be Rubrics in Google Classroom. So thank you for joining us today for this live webinar on YouTube. And thank you for following our MORIC Communications YouTube channel. Always check back for more videos coming your way on ways that you can integrate technology into your classrooms. So let's get started with rubrics in Google Classroom. So anytime you're in Google Classroom, you can create and attach a rubric to any assignment. So let's head to our classwork and create an assignment. I'm going to title it Rubric Work. And you'll notice along the right-hand side that rubric icon is now highlighted. So if we click that, you have three different options. You can create a fresh rubric, brand new. You can also reuse rubrics that you've made inside Google Classroom before. Now that will be helpful once you start to create more of a repertoire of rubrics, because then they'll be able to be saved and applied to really any assignment that you create. So we know in writing, really in any subject, you reuse some of the similar rubrics as far as, writing styles, participation, effort, those things can be are recycled often. So it's helpful that we have that feature here once you begin making more rubrics. And for today, we're actually going to start in the reuse rubric category so I can show you one that I've made so we can kind of see the big picture, and then we'll work to how we got there. So I made one called participation, and we'll click that so I can show you. Now it attaches right here at the bottom any rubric that you create or reuse. It'll attach because remember, we're creating an assignment for students, so they'll be able to see this attachment as well. So we can click here to preview it. I'm going to move myself over. All right. So you can see our assignment title here, and then the criteria below. So I broke this rubric up into 3 parts. So collaboration, staying on task, and completion of task. So those are the 3 main criteria. And then across the top are point values and expectations. So this is kind of a descriptor of the point value, and then a descriptor of what we're expecting. Now, the 2 things that are required in the rubric really are the title for each criteria and the point value. So the rest you can kind of play around with as you need, but I just wanted to show you a completed rubric so you could kind of see where we're headed. Now you'll notice across we have our criteria, and then also, since it's out of 4 points, that is the total number there. And then we have a total of, let me move myself again, 4, 8, and 12 points. So it totals that for you up at the top, which is a really, really nice feature. So now, that's kind of our completed rubric. And the kids will see it just like this too, which is really, really awesome. Now you can edit right from here. You can delete this as well. We're just going to X right out so we can get back to it. So that's what a completed rubric will look like. So now let's build one. So I'm going to delete this attachment. and create one. And it's nice that you can create one right on the fly. So this was a brand new assignment that I created, and I can make a rubric just for that assignment really easily. So it doesn't matter how you attach it. So here's that criterion title. So I had it for collaboration, I believe was my first one, but either way, that's just the criterion title, points across, or this is how you will add a level 3 by clicking this plus 2 and 1. You can also delete any of the levels by hitting these 3 little dots here and delete. You could also delete a whole criteria as well. So once we get more, I'll show you how you can move them up and down too. So here's our first. So we could say awesome, good. You get the idea, right? And then the description underneath. Completed all work with others. And then you can also add criteria here. So if we want more than just collaboration, let's say we want effort to also be a part of our rubric, that's how you would add more criteria, and then we could add those levels across again. And at the top with these 3 dots here, you can change, so you can delete. You can also duplicate, which is awesome. So a lot of times the description is the longest part of our rubric, right? It takes kind of a while to get that correct wording that we want. And then we stretch it across the levels. So you could duplicate a criteria and then really just maybe edit a few words within the description if you had filled that in. So that might be helpful. Now, let's say you had wanted effort to show first in the rubric, so above collaboration. If we hit those 3 dots and move this criterion up, it will replace it. So now you'll see effort is first and collaboration is right underneath that. So that is kind of the basics of making this rubric. As you can see, it's super user-friendly. I have no doubt you're going to be able to create a rubric in probably under 5 minutes, especially if you have a paper copy of the rubric you love, right? You're really just kind of copying those words and making it digital. And the best part is going to be when you actually use the rubric for grading. It's awesome. So let's save this work that we've done here. Okay. I am going to actually delete this one because it's the one that we just made and that's not completely filled in. And I'm going to attach or reuse, our participation rubric. That was the full filled in one that I started the webinar with. Okay, so another note before we get into grading the rubric, of course, when you're assigning anything in Google Classroom, you can add a template for the students. So if this was a project, let's say in Google Slides, and you had a template already created, or it was an essay and you had some directions at the top of a Google Doc that you just then wanted to add to that same Google Doc. If you have any kind of template or something you want to share with the students for them to work in, if you add to Google Drive, and I have a project template right here that I'm going to attach. And I want to make a copy for each student. So that will mean every student will get their own template to type in all by themselves. And then they'll also see this rubric attached. So the rubric is really adding nothing different other than that when they receive this assignment, just like you may do in the past if you're familiar with Google Classroom and already using it, they'll see this assignment that you attached for them, but then they'll also see this rubric here. So let's go ahead and assign it. So we assigned it to our kids. So what's really awesome is I have this test student ready to complete this project. So let's take a look at our classwork with our test student. Okay, here it is. Rubric work. So I'm in my test student account. So let's see how this looks on the student end, right? Because we need the students to complete it so we can grade it. So rubric work. Okay, so I see my teacher has given me a rubric and then also that template. So if I click View Assignment, it'll kind of put it in a bigger view for me so I can see this whole rubric. And by clicking these arrows, I expand the rubric so I can see the criteria and the levels. I can scroll through. Whoops. Oh no, I just hit the back button. There we go. I can scroll through. I can look at the rubric. Perfect. So I know my teacher's expectations. Now, the one thing that Google has not come out with is the ability for students to self-reflect. And we know that is super important when it comes to doing any kind of work in the classroom, right? That self-reflection piece. So students cannot go in as of right now and edit this rubric. They can just view it. But for now, I think that's pretty awesome as it is. And then of course with feedback, I'm sure Google will tweak things down the road. But for now, students are not able to edit this rubric, just view it. So we see the rubric. Oh, and I also have this template my teacher wants me to type into, so let me get that done. Perfect. I'm gonna add some slides in here. Okay, so let's pretend my project is done. So I go back to my classwork here, and it's all done. Everything saves automatically in Google, which is nice. And I'm gonna go ahead and turn this in as a student. Okay. So now when I go in as a teacher, I'm gonna hit refresh. And that rubric work assignment, if I click on that, I can see that one student has turned it in. Woohoo! So I'll click that. And I'm able to see their project. So I'm gonna go ahead and click here. Okay. So here's my student's work. I'm gonna slide myself over to the side. Okay, so I can see my students' work. Now, over on the right-hand side, you'll notice our rubric is right here for scoring, which is awesome. Okay, so I can go ahead and if I expand that collaboration, I can see all the criteria that I had listed there for my rubric, so I can pick that way. And it scores it here, right? And so far it's a 3 out of 12. And it also converted automatically my 100 total score for the assignment, since I didn't change that in Google Classroom. One, because I wasn't really thinking to change that total number in the moment right now. But two, it's really nice that that will convert anyway. So if you do forget or if you don't have a total in mind, it automatically does go to 100, that score piece. But since the rubric now has its own separate total score, it will convert and kind of mesh those two together, which huge time saver. So, all right, so we scored collaboration as good. Staying on task, we'll give them an excellent. Completion needs improvement. Okay, so you'll see it's scored through there, and I can also clear anything that I've done. I don't really want to do that right now, but you can clear any of the grades that you've given. So we'll go back up. So this student has an 8 out of 12 and a 66 out of 100. Yikes. So that is a fully graded rubric. Now the other cool piece is we as teachers know our rubrics usually like the back of our hand, right? So if I hover over this criteria here, it tells me that this is, 2 points, 1 point, and what that title is. So it doesn't give you that full description, but it gives you the title of your expectations, which is great. So you could also score them. Notice how my score is changing right from that blue bar there, which is really cool. Okay. Now, just like normal, you can leave comments for kids right within their work to give feedback. Right along the side. So that's just like normal. You can give that feedback to them, which is great. Now, once we return it, we'll be able to see on the student end what they what they see. You can also leave private comments as feedback too. And feedback is just as important as the grade. So your personal comments are super helpful. And we know that, right? As teachers, you can even add little Bitmojis, which I've seen some of my teacher friends do. I have the extension here. Let's see. And you can add that along the side, or like a good work Bitmoji. You can even add the GIFs in there. A nice thing to put in the private comments sometimes is just a YouTube link of review, or a link maybe to a Google Doc that you've done before that you want them to use again if they didn't quite get the score you expected as a review. So you can really use these comments for so many different things as part of your feedback, but I think this rubric feature is new and awesome, and I just wanted to make sure that we shared this. So let's return this to the student. We have it all scored. I'll leave a private comment just for fun. And we are going to return that. Return. Perfect. So let's go back to our student view and see what our teacher thought. So right away in the student view, the student can see just the bars highlighted across the top and their score out of 100 as well right here. But then if they expand, they're able to see that criteria again, which is really important. So they can see the total for each criteria, their whole rubric total, and then their points out of 100. And then, of course, they can go back into their assignment and view those comments there. And our private comment too. Now, something to remember or just to think about, I guess, when you're assigning work for students. I'm going to go back. Let's create just a new assignment. You do not have to attach anything for kids to work on. They can, when they go in to your assignment that you gave to them, if you've only attached the rubric, I'll show you what it looks like. If you only attach the rubric, they can go in and add their own blank Google Doc, their own blank Google slide, their own drawing, really anything that you wanted them to attach. So if you gave them instructions of what you expect for them, they would hit this create button and create from any of these options. And I'll show you what that looks like too. So let's assign this to our test student with only the rubric here. So this new assignment, I can see the rubric, and then I would add either something I've already done in Google Drive, or I can create something new right on the fly and turn that in to my teacher that way, which is super helpful if you don't have any, like a template or anything prepared to send along to them. Thank you for joining us today with this webinar on rubrics with Google Classroom. And again, my name is Brittany Gaffney. My email is listed here. And thank you so much for joining us today. And feel free to reach out in the chat if you have any other questions or comments. And then, of course, reach out via email anytime with questions on how to integrate technology into your classrooms. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful rest of your day.